Welcome back to episode 2 of the Basement Tapes podcast. My name is Autumn Cazier, and I am joined by my co-host,
Andrew Myers.
And this is our episode on post-show productions. So, Andrew, now that we're 2 weeks post-show, how do you feel currently as opposed to when we started this process?
I feel good. I definitely feel like I have less to do.
Right, naturally.
But it's good. You know, it's nice to have a break from it. But I do definitely miss having that consistency for sure, and obviously hanging out with everybody.
Now that you've done it 10 times, how was it performing it live? Was it what you expected it to be? Was it very different than what you expected?
A little bit of both. Just because there were moments that obviously with live performance you cannot prepare for.
Right.
And so, but I think that as a cast we were able to maneuver around those obstacles. And I think that for the most part, yeah, I felt really good about all 10 performances. Even on the nights that had lower energy, I felt good about them.
What would you do differently now that you've performed it live? Like, is there any scenes that you feel like you would have wanted to portray differently, or any instances that you wish you had done differently or have seen differently?
I think that a lot of the scenes that have me and Ryan together, like a lot of the basement tape scenes, I feel like those have a lot of room for variation. So I would have liked to have explored some variations to those scenes, I think, for sure.
I think I know the answer to this question, but which
Okay.
scene was your favorite to perform?
Scene?
Yeah. Is it Rev's tape?
Yeah, but yes, I loved performing Reb's tape. In the beginning, I didn't really like doing my other monologue as much, just because I'm not used to doing heavier emotion like that. But I did come to love Nixon tape as well.
Good, because that's my favorite monologue in the show.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. What was your favorite scene to watch from the wings?
I really like watching all of the monologues, but I really enjoyed watching Ryan's first monologue and second monologue. Something about them really amped me up in playing Eric, because he would go off on these very beautiful tangents that were very inspiring for my character.
Which performance did you think was your best? Because if I may, I think Closing Night was the best.
Yes, I think Closing Night was the best performance.
Actually, kind of wish we recorded that one, but it's okay.
I know, right?
It's okay.
Yeah. So, Autumn.
Yes.
What would you say was your favorite night of performances?
Where you performed the best?
No.
Or just favorite in general?
Just favorite in general. Whether it was, it could have been a slower night, but as long as it was your favorite, the one where you felt the most comfortable with, I'll say.
I don't know if there's a specific show in mind that I felt that way for, but I felt like once we were near halfway through the run, everybody was really confident and comfortable in what they were doing, and once we had a few runs under our belt, it just kept getting better and better. So I don't know if there's one particular instance, but seeing that progression over time of your guys' confidence in each other and within yourselves was apparent to myself and repeat audience goers.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Okay, what scene do you wish, if you were acting in the 2024 show, what scene do you wish you could perform in?
I feel inclined to say this one because I don't feel like I gave this one my all when I performed it, is I Follow You Into the Dark. I really, really love that scene, and unfortunately it was really cursed with Greg and I. We messed it up almost every single night. And so I would like to perform it in a way where it's performed the way that it should be. So I'd say this is the scene that I would like to have a do-over with, is I'll Follow You Into the Dark.
What scene do you think you were most proud of come performances?
Of seeing you guys?
Yeah, of any scene. We didn't record that answer.
Oh.
No, but if you want to answer it again.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, now it's recording.
Yeah.
Okay. So, to repeat what I was going to say is that the instances that I was most proud of were not a particular scene, but those moments where the content was so much a part of you guys that through costume mishaps and line flubs and whatever it may be, you were able to work together in the moment with your scene partners and still continue with the scene in the best way that you possibly could. So it was just knowing the material inside and out, and the professionalism I felt as though stood out to me more than a particular scene did every night.
Yeah. No, definitely. There was definitely a lot of professionalism. Okay, so then I'll ask you, what do you think is your top 3 favorite scenes with the 2024 cast?
My top 3 favorite scenes I feel like always change with every cast, but in this particular cast, I really loved the execution and portrayal for Careless Whisper, I'll Follow You Into the Dark, and the one that's on the screen, There Is No Rest for the Wicked, which I feel as though is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful scene in the show. Which leads us into our guest that we have today. As you'll see on the individual on the very right is our friend Mitch Tyler, who portrayed Corey DePooter. Mitch, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. Thank you so much, both of you, for having me.
Absolutely.
Very stoked to be here with you guys.
So, as are we.
Oh, yes, of course. Of course. So, Mitch, my first question for you. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you faced while playing Corey DePooter?
You know, I'd say the biggest challenge I faced while I was portraying Corey is... For most of the rehearsal process, I kept myself at arm's length from, you know, the weightiness of it all, or, you know, kind of the heaviness of what a, you know, profound tragedy it was, and, you know, with what happened to him and the rest of the victims. And I made it a point to do that because, you know, obviously being cast first, as Autumn has relayed to me many times, which I'm still very honored by, you know, spending 6 months with someone like Corey that, you know, lost his life to such a profound tragedy, such as Columbine, you know, that would weigh on a person if I, you know, tried to get into the emotional headspace of, you know, being caught in such a traumatic ordeal like that would be. And so I really didn't allow myself to be kind of consumed by that emotional weight until tech week, if I'm being completely honest. I kind of gradually eased myself more and more into the atmosphere and just the overall situation of what it'd be like to be caught in the middle of a mass shooting. And once I did start integrating that into my performance more, particularly during Tech Week, like I said, that's when really the gravity of it all hit me almost at full force. And, you know, Autumn can attest to this. There were many, many nights I would come to her needing the absolute biggest hug and just need a good solid 5 to kind of come down from just the emotional high that I would be feeling from, you know, just how, you know, traumatic and how, you know, emotional and, you know, terrible, you know, those feelings were in the moments from being in that situation. And she was an amazing support system to me through all that. And apart from that, I feel as though I did, you know, at least I certainly tried to, you know, do as admirable a job as I could in showing just what it would be like to be caught in the middle of something like that, while also honoring, you know, the bravery and, but also unfortunately, you know, the helplessness of that situation that Corey was in.
Great answer, Mitch.
Thank you.
My question for you is, what do you feel as though was your biggest motivation during your process of playing Corey?
I'd say by far my biggest motivation with my approach to portraying Corey was helping not just, not, more so for the audiences and people who were unfamiliar with all of the victims, not so much for me, but also, for everyone else, and helping them to be reminded of and remember just how beautiful and, just how special each of these people were, right? They weren't just, other, people roaming this world like the rest of us are. They had, to quote the show, they had hopes and dreams just like the rest of us. And I felt it was very important to remind audiences of just how far people like Corey and all the rest of the victims would have went in life had it not been for the Columbine tragedy. And, seeing just how accomplished and how driven Corey was in life, which I very much related to on every level, right? There were so many parallels between him and I, our lusts for life and our approach to every day as a gift, and, finding the joy in small things in everyday life and situations and things like that, and just getting out there and exploring and, going the distance like Corey was planning on doing, like with the Marine Corps and everything else like that. And I felt it was very important to remind audiences that, these people were going places and that they, left their mark on this world in, the most unfortunate and tragic of ways. But I felt my job in portraying Corey was to do him the proper justice as to the kind of person he was, while also helping audiences to remember not just who he was as a person, but that, just like him and the rest of the victims, they had the brightest futures ahead of them, and they were going to do and accomplish so much with their lives. And portraying Corey gave him that second life in a way that he deserved, so that people could see just how admirable of a person he truly was.
That was a really beautiful answer, Mitch.
Thank you.
What do you think was your biggest relation to Corey?
Easily my biggest relation to Corey that I really connected with on such a profound level was our shared love for Mustangs, which I did not know, because obviously I didn't know as near as much about any of the victims going into this as I did about, obviously the perpetrators. And that's just kind of the sad reality of the world we live in, but I digress. Anyway, the fact that he had been saving up money, apparently, to, buy a Mustang it just blew my mind, right? Because I just so happened to drive a Mustang myself. I am the proud owner of a 2015 Ford Mustang that is also manual. It's a stick. It's 6-speed stick shift, and it is such a fun car to drive. And coming to that realization about, that among, the many other parallels between Corey and I, because like I mentioned before, there's so many between us, right? Our lust for life and just our approach to, the joys of every day and cherishing life, but also just having the same interests and things in common with one another. It's almost like, some stars truly aligned that were meant to align between him and I came to feel so, spiritually and soulfully connected to Corey in that regard. But yeah, the biggest parallel and similarity I drew between him and I was the fact that I just so happened to be driving a Mustang, which is what he had been saving up for.
Yeah. No, that is really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Insightful answer, Mitch.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, for you as Corey, what do you feel as though was your personal takeaway from not only playing him, but for doing this show?
By far, my biggest takeaway from the show as a whole was understanding on a much more, deeper level just how much influence Eric and Dylan have had on this country's history of mass shootings as a whole. And I always think back to my line during No Rest for the Wicked, where I'm yelling at their dead bodies about how they have ruined countless lives. And initially, when I was first doing this show and kind of getting into the groove of the scene and the line and whatnot, I was only really thinking on a surface level in that regard as to, they ruined countless lives for, the victims who were killed, everyone at Columbine High School who, was involved in and experienced and saw the tragedy unfold firsthand, their families. And it wasn't until towards the end of the show's run, as we were getting closer to the end of it, where, just the real depth of just how much motivation and influence they've had on mass shootings in this country as a whole really sank in with me. I came to realize the countless lives were not just limited to those involved with Columbine and the people, in the world, of the millions of hearts that were broken that we just, mentioned in the show. It has truly gone on to ruin even further and more countless lives through, the copycat killers they inspired and the millions and millions of people who have been affected by or have lost their lives at the hands of other mass shooters over the past 25 years since Columbine. And it's just so heartbreaking and tragically profound to me. So that was my biggest takeaway from the show as a whole. My biggest takeaway from portraying Corey was that life is so, so short and precious, and we need to remember to love everyone and understand that you never know what a person is going through. You never know, something could happen tomorrow where, you see your best friend or a loved one and then they're gone in the blink of an eye because of a tragedy such as Columbine. And we need to hold the ones we love as close to our hearts as possible and tell ourselves how much we love them and have no regrets about the time that we've spent with them, because it can all change on a dime and life's short and one day it's gone.
Okay, Mitch, do you think it was hard for you to let go of Corey after performances?
So that is a very complicated question, which I just so happen to have a very complicated answer for, thankfully, because there is so much going through my mind in regards to that, because having spent the better part of 6 months, getting into the groove of the show and, reading up and studying on, who Corey was as a person and, listening to, the materials and watching the, the clips and the documentaries and other such things about the tragedy as a whole, but also, from people who knew Corey personally, such as, the late Austin Eubanks, his best friend, who gave such a powerful TED Talk on, what it was like, being caught in the middle of that whole ordeal. Obviously, spending that much time with, someone is bound to leave a very, emotional, very vulnerable soft spot in one's heart, especially when playing someone like Corey. And so when I was, performing and doing, our scenes, particularly No Rest for the Wicked, of course, during our final performance night, knowing that, this is it, this is going to be the end, there were so many mixed emotions going, through my mind and my heart during that scene in particular. I
could tell.
It was, just how complicated and just how I just felt like my mind and my heart was just being pulled in so many different directions during that moment. It was just so surreal, because I knew I would be saying goodbye to someone who I grew to feel so akin to in every possible way. But also, you know, like, it's such a emotionally heavy and burdensome show at the same time. It's like, you know, no one would want to spend, you know, the rest of their lives, you know, trapped in that headspace or those emotions. Obviously, it's enough to take a toll on anyone after so long. But also at the same time, knowing that I was going to be having to say goodbye to Corey in a way, and this experience as a whole, because I just, you know, fell head over heels in love with this family that I grew so close to. I was in absolute hysterics by the end of this show is my main point. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And I did have a very difficult time kind of letting Corey go, and, you know, knowing that I, you know, did him the justice and the honor that he so rightfully deserved, and nurturing him with the utmost love and respect, and helping audiences see, you know, just how beautiful and how full of potential he was, you know, my main source of solace that I turned to post-show, and just reminding myself that I did my job and I served and honored Corey to the best of my abilities, as well as his family and the rest of the victims as a whole.
It's a great answer, Mitch.
And as we are on this topic of what it was like separating ourselves from our characters and our main takeaways, and what it was like walking away from the show and these characters, Andrew, what was your experiencing like with kind of departing from Eric and kind of the emotional headspace of, you know, such a, you know, complex and tortured and anguished soul such as him, you know, someone who did what they did? What was that like for you post-show, walking away from that?
Well, I think that I spent a lot of time developing Eric and taking on certain things, and even adding certain things to him just as a character that I did. Like, I have a lot of nervous tics. Like, I like to run my fingers through my hair, or bite my nails, or play with my jewelry, and things like that. And I tried to change those nervous tics for him in moments where I felt like he could be having anxiety. And so a lot of the times, like, I would rub my palm where he would have his scar, or like look at my hand a lot. A lot of the times when, especially in I'll Follow You Into the Dark, when Dylan refers to them as gods. And there were certain things that I notice nowadays I do when I get nervous, or I'm having anxiety, where I'll start rubbing my palm, or doing certain hand motions that I would do backstage or in the wings. I think it is kind of difficult to let Eric go in some ways, because of the similarities that we do share. But I think that I'm a lot older than he was, and I have experienced a lot more life than he had. And there's a lot more things in my life that I have to look forward to. And so I think that my life is a really good distraction from that headspace.
That's beautiful. It almost made you hyper aware of yourself, if you will, right?
Yes, I definitely learned a lot more about myself than I thought I would, playing a character as awful as Eric Harris.
Oh, I love that. Is there any preparation process that you maybe didn't quite find time for or get around to? Because I know you did so much and poured so much into preparing to portray Eric. Is there anything else you meant to get around to or wanted to kind of experience as far as preparation goes for portraying Eric, or kind of getting more into his headspace or state of mind?
I mean, I hit a lot of lot of
that you
the
did.
important things.
Yeah.
I think that it would have been very, very interesting to go to a place like Rampart Range, just check out kind of the vicinity of that area, because I know that a lot of people don't know the actual location, but I think that would have been one on the list of things to do. But no, I really think that I did a lot to develop that character. So
No, absolutely.
So I'm glad that it showed. So I thank you for that question.
Oh, yes, 100%.
Autumn,
Yes.
would you like to answer this question for when you portrayed Dylan in the 2022 show?
I would love to answer this question. So, letting Dylan go, that whole process. For me, I've been acting since 2008, and Dylan was the first lead role I've ever had. And so I think a part of me, the theater kid in me, was, over the moon that I was finally a lead role, even if I had to cast myself as the lead role, but it's okay. And so I think a part of it was that I had worked so hard to get to this point that now I have a character that is really complex and is really a challenge, and that I get to play someone like that on stage was a really big moment for me personally and within my confidence within myself. As for the process of playing Dylan, it was hard to let go because I didn't know when to stop. It consumed a lot of my life every single day. The preparation process for Dylan, I would separate myself from the cast and go into the bathroom and listen to his voice on repeat over and over and over and over and over again. Or I would go home and I wouldn't really know when to come out of it or when to stop. And so now I feel like I'm in a much better place where I would love to play him again, because now I know what to do and I know my own boundaries within myself. But overall, Dylan was a hard person to let go of, because I feel like I went so method for it because of the fact that I don't look like him, and I knew that it was going to be hard to convince people of a accurate representation of that. And so I feel like smoking the same cigarettes, eating the same things, drinking the same things, the cadence within his voice, all of that I really try to replicate that as much as possible, and I think I just went too far at times. So it was hard to get him out of my body. But I now feel like I'm at a position where I'm okay to let him back in.
I feel as though the three of us, we all share in common the fact that, we each have a very deep commitment to our craft as actors, but, and especially with this show, it really taught each of us, the importance of knowing our limits, knowing our limitations, knowing our boundaries, and knowing when is too far and when are we pushing ourselves too far. And that has been a very, very therapeutic experience, and a very beneficial one for us in the long run, obviously.
Yeah, no, we talk about how, when everybody got together, the casting was so good. Good job, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yes.
the casting was so good because everybody, I felt like, shared some very close resemblance or similarity to the character that they were portraying, which I felt like it just made performances just that much more realistic and that just that much more almost like magical in a sense.
No, absolutely.
So, Mitch, let me ask you, what was, in your opinion, your least favorite part about developing Corey as a character? Or at least, what was your least favorite part of that process?
I'd say my least favorite part of that whole process wasn't, it wasn't anything in regards to, developing, his portrayal and whatnot and understanding him better and things like that. I was so honored and humbled and so, overjoyed to be bringing someone like Corey back to life, if you will, and helping as many people and audiences as possible get to know and understand and realize who Corey was as a person, in his brief life. But my least favorite part of that whole ordeal or process was just seeing and being reminded of the toll that Eric and Dylan's actions have taken on, once again, the countless lives, years, decades after the fact, right? Particularly when I was going through Corey's materials in the file, the folder that Autumn shared with me that contained, his Obituary and, the documentary and things like that, but particularly Austin Eubanks' TED Talk, who was Corey's best friend in high school, and seeing just how that trauma haunted and followed him for the rest of his life, and he struggled off and on with, substance addiction and things like that, and, moved mountains to, fight that and overcome that and inspire so many lives and so many people with his talks and everything that he did to spread that awareness, only to, ultimately succumb to it and, relapse however many years later. It just goes to show you how, truly haunting and just, almost insurmountable surviving such, an ordeal and tragedy can be, and even, the fiercest of us, can sometimes... Sorry, guys, this is... Yeah, sorry, that's, it's a very emotional soft spot for me in my heart. But, basically what I'm trying to say is even the strongest of us, especially the strongest of us, have our demons and our trauma, right? Like, that's what makes us strong, but sometimes, those demons do, we do succumb to them sometimes at the expense of, our own lives, and that's a very heartbreaking thing to me, that's, what became of Austin in the end. But he really did his part, and he honored Corey the best way he knew how to, and he will forever be remembered for that, especially by me, of course, and in my heart, always for that.
So, Mitch,
yes.
My last question for you is, what do you hope people who see the show, or have seen the show, or will continue to see the show in the future, take away from it?
I would say my hope for what their biggest takeaway will be from seeing our show is just how severe and what an epidemic gun violence here in America truly is. And I feel as though far too many people turn a blind eye to that fact and, want to do whatever they can to sweep tragedies such as this under the rug and just, say it is what it is, or, what can we do about it? No, like, I want people to actively come away from our show asking themselves, what can I do? How can I make a difference? Even if it's something as simple as spreading more awareness to people about just what a true issue this is that we have on our hands, and spreading awareness through statistics, through facts, through friends and firsthand accounts and experiences, and just understanding the gravity of our issue at hand here in America with gun violence and mass shootings, and just getting people thinking more about, what can we do moving forward that will prevent this from happening to countless others down the road.
So before Autumn wraps this podcast episode up, is there any final things that you would like to address or say or speak?
Absolutely. Although I'm coming away from kind of departing this show and this family and this whole experience, and, Corey in a lot of ways I'm departing from for now as well. It's not, what's never going to change is that Corey will forever remain in my heart and in my mind and in my soul, because I have just grown to love and truly care for the kind of person he was, and helping to preserve and keep him and his memory alive for everyone. And I will carry him and who he was with me in my heart, always and forever.
Well, thank you so much, Mitch, for coming on and being a part of this episode. I think your answers have been really insightful and powerful.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, both of you.
Absolutely. So the next time that you can catch all three of us actually on stage together is coming up on December 9th, is the opening for 3 performances of a modern day adaptation of Hamlet that we're all a part of here in the Salt Lake Valley. I am playing King Claudius.
And I will be playing Polonius and the Gravedigger.
And I will be playing Horatio.
And then Riley, who played Devin Adams in our 2024 production, is directing it. So that's one that you won't want to miss. And you can buy tickets. We can link tickets in the description of this video.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.